If you clicked on this video, it means you want to know what really happens here after the sun goes down. I'm going to tell this story exactly as it happened. In order, no exaggeration, no missing details. But I need to warn you first, some of what I'm about to describe still doesn't make sense to me, even after 14 years of wearing this badge. My name is Daniel Mercer. I've been the sheriff of Dry Creek, a small desert town, for almost a decade. Dry Creek doesn't show up on most maps. It's surrounded by empty highway, dead land, and long stretches of desert where radio signals fade and phone service drops without warning. During the day, it's quiet, peaceful even. A gas station, a diner, a school that barely stays open, and a population small enough that you notice immediately when someone doesn't come home. But after sunset, the town changes. Not all at once, not dramatically. It's subtle. The air gets heavier, the roads feel longer, and people stop going out unless they absolutely have to. When I first transferred here, I thought it was superstition. Locals refusing to drive after dark, businesses closing early, people rushing home before the sun touched the horizon. They didn't say why, they just said the same thing, every time. Don't be out after sunset. In my first year as sheriff, 3 people went missing. No witnesses, no evidence of a struggle, no abandoned vehicles. They simply weren't there anymore. All 3 disappearances happened after sunset. At first, the state chalked it up to desert dangers, exposure, illegal crossings, drug routes, standard explanations. But I knew something was off, because none of them were travelers. They were locals. People who knew these roads, people who had lived here their entire lives. One of them was a high school teacher who went out to lock up the gym after an evening practice. He never came back. Another was a mechanic who stayed late at his shop to finish a job. His tools were still laid out, the lights were still on. He was gone. The third was a teenage girl walking home from her friend's house, just as the sun disappeared behind the hills. No scream, no footprints, no trace. After that, I started paying attention, not to crime reports, to patterns. Every disappearance happened within 1 hour after sunset, always in town limits, always close to familiar places, and always quiet. No emergency calls, no witnesses, almost like the town itself had swallowed them. That's when the old deputy pulled me aside. He'd worked here longer than anyone. He didn't look scared when he spoke. He looked tired. He said, "Sheriff, after sunset, we don't chase everything we hear." I asked him what he meant. He stared out the window toward the desert and said, "Because sometimes what's out there isn't lost. Sometimes it's waiting." That was the first time I realized this wasn't just about missing people. It was about rules. Rules no one had written down. Rules no one liked to talk about. And rules that, if broken, didn't give you a second chance. After the third disappearance, I stopped asking the town what was happening. I started asking when. Every report, every missing person, every strange call that never went anywhere, they all shared one thing: sunset. Not midnight, not 3 a.m. The moment the sun dropped below the horizon, something shifted. At first, I thought it was psychology. People panic more in the dark. Distances feel longer. Sounds carry differently. That's what I told myself. But the logs didn't agree. Between sunrise and sunset, Dry Creek was normal. Minor disputes, lost livestock, occasional drunk driver passing through. After sunset, the calls stopped. Not fewer calls, none. It was like the town went quiet on purpose. I brought it up in a meeting once, asked dispatch why we never got calls after dark. The room went silent. Finally, the dispatcher, a woman who'd worked here longer than me, said something I'll never forget. She said, "People don't call after sunset anymore." I asked why. She didn't answer. She just slid a notebook across the table. It wasn't an official log. No timestamps, no case numbers, just handwritten notes, dates, names, locations. Every line ended the same way: last seen after sunset. She told me it was an old habit. Whenever someone vanished, they wrote it down, not for reports, for memory. Because if you wrote it officially, someone from outside would ask questions, and there were no good answers. That night, I drove patrol myself. just before sunset. The sky turned orange, then red, then dark. As the last light faded, the road felt longer. Same speed, same landmarks. But the distance between them stretched. I radioed dispatch, asked for a routine check, static. Then her voice came back, clear but delayed, like she was farther away than she should have been. That's when I saw it. A man standing near the edge of the road. I slowed. He didn't wave, didn't move, just stood there, watching. I stopped the car, opened the door. The moment my boots touched the ground, the man stepped back, not into the desert, into the darkness, and then he was gone. No footsteps, no sound, just empty road. I didn't chase him. I remembered what the old deputy said. After sunset, we don't chase everything we hear. I got back in the car, turned around, and went back to the station. When I arrived, dispatch asked if everything was okay. I told her yes. Then she asked, "Did you see someone?" I asked how she knew. She said, "Because that's always how it starts." That night, I wrote the first rule down. Not in any official book, just for myself. Rule first. After sunset, dawn, and follow anything that doesn't want to be seen. Because once you do, the town doesn't help you find your way back. After I wrote the first rule, I stopped expecting answers. Dry Creek doesn't explain itself. It just waits to see if you're paying attention. I started reviewing old case files, not the ones we sent to the state, the ones kept in the back room, boxes with faded labels, cases marked unresolved, people who didn't make the news, migrant workers, runaways, drifters passing through town, names that were easy to forget. But every file ended the same way. Last confirmed sighting, after sunset. Some reports mentioned shadows where there shouldn't be any, others talked about voices coming from empty lots. Most were dismissed as stress, fear, heat. But there was one file that bothered me. A boy, 10 years old, vanished walking home before dark. Or so the report said, except when I checked the timestamp, the sun had already set. His backpack was found on the sidewalk, shoes still inside. No footprints, no sign of struggle. Just gone. I asked around. The townspeople remembered him, but they didn't talk about him like someone missing. They talked about him like someone who'd finished something, like he'd crossed a line you don't come back from. That's when I noticed something worse. The disappearances weren't random. They followed paths, walking routes, shortcuts, familiar roads people took every day. As long as you stayed where light reached, you were safe. But once the shadows fully settled, the rules changed. One night, dispatch broke the pattern. A call came in at 7:42 p.m., just minutes after sunset. The caller didn't scream, didn't ask for help. He just said, "I think I took the wrong road." I asked him where he was. He named a street that didn't exist. I asked what he could see. He paused, then said, "I see houses, but they don't look finished." His voice sounded far away, echoed. I told him to turn around. He said he couldn't, said the road behind him wasn't there anymore. Then the line went dead. We drove out the next morning. The location he described was an empty stretch of desert. No road, no houses, nothing. After that, no one asked why we stopped responding to calls after sunset. They already knew, because Dry Creek doesn't take people by force. It waits until you step somewhere you shouldn't. And once you do, you don't disappear. You simply stop belonging to the town that remembers. We never meant to break the rules. Rules like these aren't written down, they're felt, ignored only once, and never twice. The call came in just after sunset. A vehicle accident on the edge of town, family involved, possible injuries. We hesitated. Everyone in the station did, because helping people after sunset was how others had disappeared. But leaving a family out there felt worse. So we broke the first rule. 2 deputies went out together, headlights on, radio open. They reached the location in minutes. The vehicle was there, doors open, engine cold, no people, no blood, no footprints, just silence. One deputy radioed in that the area felt wrong, not dangerous, just empty, like the sound had been drained from the air. Then the radio cut out, static, then a voice, not his. It asked, "Why are you still here?" The deputies didn't answer. They got back in the car and turned around. The road back was longer than it should have been. Street signs appeared where they shouldn't. Distances changed. They followed the headlights until town lights came back into view. The moment they crossed into town limits, everything snapped. Back to normal. They didn't file a report, didn't need to. Everyone knew. That night we added another rule. Rule second. If you break the first rule, you leave immediately. And you don't respond to voices that know your name, because the town doesn't like being interrupted after sunset. And next time, it doesn't let you leave so easily. After that night, no one volunteered for evening patrol. No one argued about it either. The rules were no longer superstition. They were survival. But rules only work until someone believes they're stronger than them. Deputy Aaron Cole was young, confident, transferred in from a city department where danger was loud and obvious. Guns, sirens, crowds. Dry Creek didn't scare him. He said the town felt dead. He laughed when we told him not to patrol after sunset. Said fear made people imagine things. One evening, just as the sun dropped below the hills, Aaron radioed in. Routine patrol. Said he'd be back before dark. He wasn't. At 7:51 p.m., dispatch got a call, a man saying he'd been pulled over by one of our deputies. But Aaron hadn't reported a stop. The caller sounded confused. Said the deputy's car lights were on, but the deputy never approached his vehicle. Just sat there, watching. We tried calling Aaron, no response. I drove out myself, found his cruiser on the side of the road, engine running, lights on, door open. Aaron was standing a few feet away, facing the desert. I called his name. He turned slowly. His face looked wrong, not injured, not scared, empty, like he was listening to something I couldn't hear. I told him to get in the car. He shook his head, said, "They're showing me where everyone went." I grabbed his arm. The moment I touched him, the wind picked up, the air went cold, and then everything went quiet, too quiet. No insects, no engine sound, just silence. I pulled him toward the car. He resisted, whispered, "If I leave now, I won't understand." I dragged him back inside and slammed the door. The second we crossed the town boundary, Aaron collapsed, cried, said he'd been standing there for hours, said he could see shapes moving just beyond the dark, places that looked like streets, but weren't on any map. He resigned 2 weeks later, left town, never talked about Dry Creek again. That night, we added the rule no one ever wants to admit exists. Rule third, if the town starts explaining itself to you, it's already too late. Deputy Lena Morales knew the rules. She'd grown up 2 towns over, heard the stories before she ever wore a badge. She never laughed at them, never challenged them, which is why what happened to her still keeps me awake. It was late summer. Sunset came fast that evening. Lena was finishing paperwork at the station and volunteered to drop off evidence at the county storage unit, just outside town limits. She said it would take 10 minutes. The sun was already touching the horizon. I told her to wait until morning. She smiled and said, "I'll be quick." At 7:38 p.m., she radioed in that she was heading back. At 7:41, she radioed again. Her voice was calm, but tighter than normal. She said, "Sheriff, the road looks different." I told her to turn around immediately. She paused, then said, "I don't think I can." The radio crackled. I heard wind. Then she said something that made my chest go cold. "I see the lights, but they're not town lights." I told her to stay in the car, lock the doors, do not follow anything. Her last words were, "I hear someone calling my name," then silence. We waited. We broke every rule except one. No one went out after her. At sunrise, we searched. The road to the storage unit was intact. No skid marks, no tire tracks. The building was locked. The evidence box she delivered was inside. Her patrol car was found a mile down the road. Engine off, keys still in the ignition, driver's door closed. No sign she'd ever left the vehicle. Her radio was on the seat, still powered, still tuned to dispatch. She was never seen again. The official report said missing person, unexplained circumstances. But the town knew better. Lena didn't vanish. She stayed too long when the town was no longer ours. That night, we wrote the final rule. Not on paper, not anywhere official, just in memory. Rule 4th, after sunset, if someone calls your name from the dark, you don't answer, because whatever learns your name doesn't plan to give it back. I stayed in Dry Creek for 3 more years after Lena disappeared. Not because I thought I could fix anything, but because someone had to remember the rules. The town didn't change after that night. No sirens, no headlines, no investigations that led anywhere. Life continued. People still worked, kids still went to school, tourists still passed through during the day, and every evening, just before sunset, everyone went home. Outsiders thought it was habit. We knew better. We'd learned that the town doesn't hunt. It doesn't chase. It waits. After sunset, Dry Creek becomes something else. Not dangerous in the way people understand danger. It doesn't attack. It invites. It shows you lights that look familiar, roads that feel right, voices that sound like people you trust. And if you follow them, you don't die. You just stop existing, in the version of the town that remembers you. I finally left when I realized something worse. The disappearances were becoming more frequent. Not dramatic, just closer together, shorter gaps between them, and the town wasn't hiding it anymore. One evening, as I packed my office for the last time, the sun set while I was still inside. The lights flickered. For a moment, I heard someone say my name, soft, patient, from outside the building. I didn't answer. I locked the door, sat still, and waited until the sun came up. That was the night I decided to tell this story, not to scare anyone, but to leave a record, because places like Dry Creek exist all over the country. Small towns, long roads, deserts, forests, valleys, places where people disappear without violence and without explanation. If you ever pass through one of them, remember this. If the sun is setting, don't rush, don't take shortcuts. Don't follow lights you don't recognize, and if someone calls your name from the dark, let it go unanswered, because some towns don't want visitors after sunset, and once they decide you belong to them, they never give you back. Final line. This isn't a ghost story. It's a survival story, and now you know the rules.